Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into the channel. Right now we are going live for Fight Island, UFC 251. It is tomorrow. I'm recording this on the evening on East Coast at least, right now at around 6 o'clock p.m. East Coast time. And we are going to be just pretty much talking about Fight Island. I'm going to be answering questions. This is going to be Q&A based, but I have right now up on the screen just my sheets that you can just see. Take a screenshot if you think it helps you statistics-wise. Obviously, that's not all that's involved, but you have to have some sort of film study, have an idea for these guys. The stats will only paint you a more truer picture of what they do there, but not the whole picture. But I have my projections on my window with my rankings, and I also have all of my exposures. So right now I crunched 300 lineups. Obviously, I'm not going to play 300 lineups, at least not in one contest. You can't, but 150 lineups you can play. So I'm going to be putting it in there. Somebody says, stick to fantasy football. No, I would never do that. It's my number one priority with golf, but I'm also very into NBA, and I'm also into MMA. MMA is probably the bottom of my interest list out of those four sports, but when there's a Millie Maker, we're going to be covering it. What's going on, Michael? Right now I'm going to be covering this. I have my 300 lineups crunch for tomorrow for MMA. I have three different sets of lineups crunch, which we can go through. One of them has a couple guys locked into 100%. One of them has one guy locked into 100%, and the other one's just increasing a lot of variance and letting my projections ride in there, not locking anybody in. What's going on, everybody? See people hopping in right now. So I'm here to answer any questions. My exposures, my projections, my rankings, all those things are up. You can find them also if you want to get access to them on Patreon, which is just linked down below if you want to support me there, as well as getting access to a lot of other sports. So see some people hopping in. We've been live for only a minute, so if you are just hopping in, if you're watching right now or on the replay, please do hit the like and subscribe button at some point, probably right now. Loving the streams and the videos, bro. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I don't do a lot of MMA content, mainly just because of the Millie Makers is why I'm doing more MMA content. Because I play DFS, I do follow MMA, follow it a lot more closely now, but probably more so than a casual person ever has. My roommates during college, my one roommate was very much into it, so I pretty much was able to tail it for about 2 years because of that. So yeah, this card is obviously fantastic, right? The fact that I keep watching Dana White's interviews because this guy is he's the best commissioner right now in sports, obviously. Adam Silver's up there for the NBA, but I think it's Dana White. Just this guy is insane. What he's pulling off right now is obviously insane. Easier for the type of sport that he has. But the interviews are just nuts right now. Him hyping it up, him saying that this has already sold more in merchandise and probably tickets for the UFC this year than any other year. And it's just right now we're in July, the midway point. So obviously they're thriving right now from everything. So what I want to just go over here is what I'm looking at. There's a couple of different builds that I have. I mean, if I just go over to my projections, any type of projections that you're going to be looking at, more than likely if they're building them reasonably, and then when you want to manipulate them is when you just change exposures, and obviously some things there for if you're building a lot of lineups. But my projections that I'm looking at right now, Usman and Volkanovski are going to be just standout plays, right? For me at least. And I know a lot of people want to go to Max Holloway, and that's the deciding factor that I have to make a decision on. Masvidal should not come in 25 to 30% on like he's going to. In my opinion, he shouldn't. Now, any type of underdog in a five-round fight in a main event, they should have ownership, right? So I guess like if you're getting on him in a win 30% of the time, obviously that's great, right? In terms of the ownership that he's on and a lot less people on him than the what's probably 50+% that's going to come on Usman. But for me, I'm probably playing a ton of Usman. So the three crunches that I did, I locked Usman into one of them. I locked him into another one of them, and then I just let my projections ride without me even locking in Usman, without even hitting the lock button on Usman. I still ended up getting, let me pull it up right now, I still ended up getting 86% Usman. So when I don't hit the lock button, based on how I have him projected in this slate, I'm getting 86% of him. So it looks like at the very least I'm going to have 30+% more than the field, and there's a really good chance that I just go 100% at that point, which more than likely means I'm getting no Masvidal. So we'll see what ends up happening. If indeed I do go with the 86% Usman lineup, then the amount of Masvidal that I get, I want to see if it's a direct replacement for it. No, I'm not getting a lot of Masvidal either way right now as I look through this. So yeah, it's really just going to be Usman for me from that fight. I know a lot of people in the betting markets want to get to Masvidal. Probably not somebody that I'm personally going to be getting to. But yeah, that's the way that at least I have it set up right now. Even when I get 86% Usman and not having 100% of him in that fight, I'm still not getting Masvidal. So Usman, probably the best play in the slate in my opinion. Betting markets, I think he's like the best bet right now to just throw into your parlays. It's very similar to Conor McGregor. Not the exact same, but it's similar to McGregor, and it's obviously not the exact same, switching sports and stuff with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor, right? The public money on McGregor made it so that Floyd bet was like free money in terms of how much you can put down on it, right? It's starting to get that way for Usman in terms of the amount of money that you're going to be able to get down on him at a good number now, crossing into like the -200 range. So Usman for me is somebody that I'm definitely playing. And then Volkanovski is somebody I feel equally as good about. So I made a crunch where I have 100% of both of them. Right now, I 300 lineup crunch that thing. And the 3 main event fights, the 3 5-round fights, those are the guys that I want. I want Volkanovski and I want Usman. I'm going to get a lot of both of them. I might just lock both of them in. I think Volkanovski has a very large advantage over Holloway. Obviously, the second fight between the two of them. So I think I'm going to go there. And then the guy that I would end up going to as an underdog would be Jose Aldo. If you're going to pick one out of these 3 main event fights, it's really hard to get all 3, right, of these studs into your lineup. And Peter Yan is actually the most expensive of all of them at 9,300. He's the guy that I like the least anyways from a projection standpoint, having projected for right now 13 points less than Volkanovski and 8 points less than Usman. So I just naturally don't like him as much. So he's naturally not going to get into as many of my lineups. But then also when you look at a 5-round fight, I actually like the opposite side of it from a strategic standpoint of Jose Aldo when you look at his ownership that he's going to be at and when you just look at piecing together an actual lineup. Because if you try and get to Peter Yan, if you try and get to Volkanovski and Usman in the same lineup, I think you have like $7,400, $7,500 left over per player, and that's obviously not great. You're then choosing between some real bottom feeders, and at least in my projections out of like those types of fighters, just having one of those fighters pay off would be interesting for you. Having 2 of them is likely, maybe not likely, but possible. Having 3 underdogs, right, at that point, taking the 3 favorites in the big fights and then having 3 underdogs pay off for you, it's just so unlikely at that point. And more than likely 3 underdogs not in those fights. So you have to just kind of scratch off Masvidal, Holloway, and Aldo at that point. You probably don't want to be stacking any of those fights. If any fight you would want to stack, I would say the Holloway one. But then you're automatically left with a very similar lineup to everybody else, right? You have at that point 1, 2, 3, 4 fighters to choose from, 5 fighters to choose from, right? So you really can't play the top 3 studs because there's going to be a good amount of people who do that, and then you're choosing between 5 of the same fighters, and one of those fighters is Paige Van Zandt, which I don't think anybody wants to play her. Vanessa Mello is one of them. I think that's an okay option, but again, women fights, even if you're winning as an underdog, probably going the distance, which is good to get the win bonus, but probably not much after that. So I really don't think you can play the 3 studs in this one. So then it comes down to, do you want to just play one of the underdogs, whether it's Masvidal who's picking up ownership, Aldo it's not picking up as much, or Holloway picking up a ton. If Holloway's going to be the guy picking up a ton of ownership, even if he wins, sure, it's good for you. You have him in your lineup, but it's not helping you win. Like if he's going to be 45% owned and like the 3rd or 4th highest owned guy as an underdog, easy fade for me. So I'm going to go to Jose Aldo as a guy that I get to ownership-wise. I think right now for Aldo, the one crunch that I like the most, I have 58% Aldo. If I look at some of my other crunches, I'm still getting a lot of Aldo, definitely more than Holloway. 46% in this crunch. So yeah, I'm going to have a lot of Aldo, but also what that means is that in those lineups that I don't have him, I'm just not having that fight, which is kind of scary, not having all 3 main event fights, but just the way that it breaks down and like how you actually have to build lineups out, you're probably either splitting a ton of money, but more than likely all those underdogs aren't winning for you. And even if they do win, like they might not put up a ton of points, like Paige Van Zandt and Vanessa Mello, right? Even though they're huge underdogs, some of them, especially Van Zandt. So yeah, it's a situation where I think, for me personally, I'm just going to be getting a lot of, if not 100% Usman plus Volkanovski. If something happens, it happens, that's fine. And then I'm going to get to Jose Aldo, and then after that, piece together the rest of my lineups. I have a good amount of Amanda Ribas, nothing crazy. I do have Vanessa Mello, like on the opposite side of the Rosa fight. I actually like Vanessa Mello as an underdog option. The issue there is, like, even in a win, does she put up enough points? So I do like a decent amount of Mello. And let me pull up my lineups where I have Usman and Volkanovski, so 100% each, right? So if you go 100% each on both of these players, I actually take Vanessa Mello as one of my, outside of Aldo, as one of my highest underdog type plays, because obviously at that point, if I have 100% of Usman and Volkanovski, I'm not going to be getting to Masvidal, I'm not going to be getting to Max Holloway. So I see a question coming in about Volkan and Tybura. Yeah, so I have, they're split for me. They're honestly like a dead split at this point for me. It's going to be probably, like, in terms of, obviously it's a different fight, but I have 25% Volkan. Tybura, I have 23%. So they're both in like my top 7 owned fighters. So I do have a decent amount of them, going to get to both of them. I like the Tybura side of that fight, have more of that by a very large margin actually right now. I'm trying to see how much of Sally I have. Yeah, not much. Or Maxim I have. Yeah, I don't even know if I have any. I have to have some. I have 9% of 300 lineups. So obviously when that gets crunched down, that's going to change. So yeah, I guess out of like all the expensive options outside of Usman and Volkanovski, just looking at it right now, when I go 100% of those 2 fighters, it's very difficult at that point to fit like an Amanda Ribas in, obviously. A Peter Yan, definitely not going to be able to fit in, and I don't need a unique lineup after that. Rosa just naturally is somebody that I'm not going to end up getting to, Rosa. So I'm going to get to Melo on the opposite side of that one. But just looking at expensive fighters, that's about it. Like, I don't really get to any expensive fighters after that. And it makes sense when I'm stacking two pretty expensive fighters already. Volkanovski, $9,100. Usman, you get a pretty fair price on at $8,900, but still expensive. Just trying to see any other fighters that are on the top end that I would get a lot of if I was to run these ones out. It's pretty much relying on kind of coin flippy type fights, right? Guys who are minus 125, minus 110, minus 150 even. Those types of fights are where a lot of the rest of my lineups are going to end up being. Like Day, I have 17% of at 8,500. Grant on the opposite side of that one, so I prefer Day in that matchup, the favorite. Grant, I have 10% of in these builds. So any Ani, so somebody wants to say if any Ani, yeah, 19%. So that's another favorite that I have a decent amount of, but I also have 17% of Henry in that fight. So that's kind of like a coin flip, taking it both ways. But for an expensive fighter, that's somebody that I do have. And then it gets down to just these mid and low 8K guys that are pretty much all kind of toss-ups, right? We talked about Volkan, Maxim, those types of guys. So yeah, I think right now where I feel like if Volkanovski wins, which I expect, so does Vegas odds, or at least I'm thinking that way, you're going to have a ton of points. This is somebody who's going to put up 100 plus points. That's needed in the lineup. There you go. Take it. I'm taking it. Especially when the underdog option, like if Holloway was 20% owned, yeah, there's a real chance that Holloway can pull it off. But when Holloway is going to be like the third highest owned fighter as an underdog because somebody has to pick an underdog, I'm just not going to go there. Usman, I think, is by far the bigger favorite in that fight with Masvidal. I think Masvidal's just public interest is taking on a lot of it, and I like Masvidal, but I think if both of those fighters win, they're going to push for 100 plus points. They're going to be needed in the lineup. And then at that point, you just have to pick the right underdogs, right? Whether it's big underdogs or slight underdogs. The big underdogs that I like, Vanessa Melo is just going to make it into my lineups naturally. Don't really like that. Just trying to look at some of the other underdogs. Bogatov is going to make it into a good amount of my lineups as well, 26% fifth highest owned or sixth highest owned at that point. And then not a lot of large underdogs. I have 20% Ribas up top, so that'll make it some more lineups that'll be pretty interesting, right? So where I'm not getting to Peter Yan or where I'm not getting to Jose Aldo as an underdog because I have 58% of Jose Aldo, my biggest underdog piece, I'd probably get to where I'm not getting there, I'd probably get to Ribas as just stacking three huge fights at that point to get a little bit different. I'm really trying to stack Masvidal, Holloway, and Aldo. So you want to stack all three underdogs? Yeah, that's a really unique build, to be honest with you. I'm probably not going to do that. I really like Usman and I really like Volkanovski. Obviously, a lot of people do. And when you play both of them, it kind of limits what you can do after that. But seeing that 40-something% of the field wants to play Masvidal, I'm fine just walking away from that ownership pretty easily. So, like, let me pull up the Holloway ownership right now. The fact that Holloway is going to come in pretty much the same ownership as Volkanovski, like how are you getting? You're obviously getting the price savings, right? Like that's where you're getting unique. But playing Holloway over Volkanovski, it makes you unique because of the salary that you have left over. But he's going to be the same ownership as him, which is crazy to me. At least projected ownership. Volkanovski projected for right around 40, and so is Holloway at this point. So yeah, I have not a ton of interest in playing Holloway right now. I'm very interested in just going 100% Volkanovski. And the same exact thing can be said for Usman. Usman's going to be the highest owned fighter, but Usman should probably be like 70% owned, if not more. But you're going to see 25-30% of the ownership coming in on Masvidal because he's just picking up a ton of public money, and so is this fight right now. A lot of underdogs have been winning lately. Yeah, there's been a lot of KOs. Holloway has T-Rex arms, Volk is stronger, more cardio, better reach. Yeah, I think Volkanovski wins, and there's obviously a 100% chance that if Volkanovski wins, that he's going to be in the winning lineup, right? I don't think any of us doubt that. The fantasy points per game is just absolutely ridiculous at the like 110 per clip. Same thing can be said for Usman on 113 per clip. Are you going live for golf later today? No live for golf. I'll be putting up a Patreon podcast later today or later on Saturday for the Sunday showdown, but nothing live for golf tomorrow because of the delays, right? The event is still going on and there's a lot of golf to be played. There's some guys that still have like 12 holes left. I can't cover the showdown slate and the weekend slate, and the weekend slate doesn't even have a top prize that's that great. I can't cover the showdown slate because of the delays, right? There was overall like an hour plus of delays. And if that's the case, like I'm not going to be doing an 8 o'clock or a 9 o'clock live stream for an event that starts tomorrow morning. It just doesn't make sense for me. It's not going to reach enough people. But Like, I'm looking at it right now. There's guys that are still on their 5th hole today. So, I mean, those guys have like another 2 hours of golf. So that event's not going to end until like 8:20. And then by the time that all the data comes in, I'm going to have to be going live at like 8:30. That gives people like 3 hours to watch it. So I won't be able to. Going to have Holloway if he wins. Yeah, of course. You're going to have the main event fighters more than likely if they win. Which is why I'm probably just going to have Usman, Aldo, and Usman. Actually, honestly, like, I think Aldo is the best main event underdog, to be honest with you. At least from a DraftKings perspective. You factor in being the cheapest price fighter. You factor in being the lowest, I believe the lowest owned of these three, definitely lower owned than. So he's gonna be coming in. Aldo's gonna be pretty much the same ownership as Masvidal, except he's $400 cheaper. And obviously, if you go to Masvidal, then you're probably not getting to Usman, and I don't really want to be doing that all that much. Just gonna play Van Zandt. Screw it. Yeah, I guess you can go there, but like Van Zandt is just. Van Zandt has, so right now I have my lowest projected. Let me just give you a peek inside the projections. My lowest projected fighter that's not named Van Zandt is projected for 50.2 points. I have Paige Van Zandt projected for 30.2, a 20-point difference. The gap from the second lowest projected, if I take 20 points onto that, there's like, I don't even know, like 15 fighters. Maybe even more, maybe like 18 fighters in that range. So that's how crazy the gap is. So yeah, I'll have 0 Paige Van Zandt. Actually, let me check in 300 lineups if I got any. In 300 lineups, I got 3. So there you go. Or no, I got 9. In 300 lineups, I had 9 because I bumped up the randomness on this. So when I cut that down to 150 and it optimizes better, in like 300 and 150 lineups, I think I would get maybe 1 Paige Van Zandt, and that's with high randomness on. So like the craziest, maybe not the craziest of outcomes, but pretty crazy outcomes going off. If you're still watching right now, I see there's 70 plus people in here. It's pretty good on a Friday evening when people are in quarantine. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you only follow MMA DFS, I don't cover it a ton. It's the Millie Makers, right? It's the Fight Island stuff. I mainly cover NFL, golf, and NBA. Those are my main sports that I cover. So you can check it out if you like betting, if you like just really good research for fantasy sports and DFS. Check out my channel. Tons of NFL videos going out pretty much every single day. Have them scheduled out for the next 20 days already. And then we're going to have golf 4 times a week on this channel usually. 4 videos releasing a week, and obviously Tiger is back next week, so that's very exciting. So from a betting and DFS perspective is where my background is. So you can check it out, hit the subscribe button if you're interested. If you're interested in my projections, rankings, exposures, those types of things, they'll be on Patreon. They already are. So you can check those out. It's linked down below, as well as just a ton of golf stuff and esports, whatever else. There's a bunch of stuff. You can just read the descriptions of it. I'll put the link in there now. But pretty pumped that there's this many people in here. It's just pretty cool. Obviously, I thought about doing this tomorrow, like right before lock, because then a lot more people would join in. But this time works better because I want to be watching the fights and hanging out tomorrow. Accurate with Van Zandt, yeah. Aldo's gas tank is a huge question mark at 135. You're not scared of those championship rounds? Yeah, I am. The idea of me playing a lot of Aldo has nothing to do with my confidence in him winning. I'm the least confident in Yan winning. And if I play all 3 of the main event fighters in Yan, Volkanovski, and Usman, I have to choose 3 out of 5 fighters after that. I literally only have 5 fighters to choose from after that, right? To build the rest of my lineup. So 1, that's going to be a pretty popular build. And 2, out of those 5 fighters, it would be Paige Van Zandt. I don't want that. Vanessa Melo. I don't think that's terrible. And then the other options are just kind of like toss-ups. So like even out of those remaining 5 fighters, I think like 2 of them might win. And at that point, like, you're not winning if you have a loss in your lineup. And if Paige Van Zandt somehow pulls off an underdog victory, she's not going to be in winning lineup. She's probably not scoring enough. Same thing for Vanessa Melo. If she pulls off an underdog victory. So, like, I really don't see a path to victory. And if there is one, like if all 3 of your underdogs in the 7K range by stacking all the main event fighters pull off the victories, if that happens, you're going to be splitting the first place prize with like 1,000 people. So, if not more. So yeah, like it comes down to, in my opinion, you can only take 2 of those favorites in your lineups. You might only need 1. Like if Holloway and Masvidal pull it off, that's going to be a unique build, right? So if you want to get unique and go with Holloway and Masvidal, I think that's interesting too. I personally am just going to be getting a lot of Usman and Volkanovski. That's the way that I think the fights are going. Usman and Volkanovski I'm going to have in, potentially I'll lock both of them to 100%. And then just really play around with a lot of the coin flip fights in the mid 7 and or really mid 8K range. and then play around with some of the underdogs that I think at least stand out in Bokotov. And honestly, Vanessa Mello stands out a little bit in my exposures. Show Van Zandt some love. I'll take it. Yeah, no, not at all. Is the Fight Island octagon still smaller like the one in Vegas that has been producing all the KOs? Yeah, a lot of KOs because of... So, yeah, that's also another reason. Like gas tanks and being able to train the same way is an issue for people. So a lot of people going for knockouts earlier on. At least I think so in training. And then also the size of the octagon, too. I feel like Rose doesn't want to get picked up. She will have to accept takedowns instead. I have to watch more Andrea fights, but though which she had because it doesn't box well. All right. Yeah, I have of Jessica. I have like, let me see. At least in this exposure, if I do 100% of both, I'll probably get like of Mello. I'll get in the 30s and probably the high 20s on Jessica. Aldo also low volume. Career versus a recent, whole different ballgame. Yeah. I mean, the end of the day, I have zero interest in the actual for this card, the way that it lays out. I like Volkanovski. I like Usman. That's obvious. They're going to be two of the highest owned fighters. They might be the two highest owned fighters, right? Your ways around that are to be going to the other side, but the other side is a high owned Max Holloway. So your ways around that are go to Peter or to go to Jose Aldo or to go to Masvidal. I don't really believe in Masvidal winning this week. So if Holloway's high owned, what's the point of going to him, in my opinion, as your pivot? If I don't believe in Masvidal and I really like Usman, and if he wins, he's going to score 95 to 100 plus points. It just by process of elimination out of these main event underdogs, it just leaves Aldo. And I also think that Yan is the sketchiest and I would say riskiest of the three main event fights as the favorite. I think that Volkanovski and Usman are the much better and stable favorites. So it doesn't even come down to how much I feel about Aldo. It's just a process of elimination. Like, I'm not betting on Aldo in the outright markets. I'm not putting money on him at whatever he is, plus 200, plus 180. It just comes down to fitting the pieces of a puzzle together for 150 lineups. And for me to do that, it's going to be needing to get to Aldo or just not getting to that fight at all. And not getting to a 5-round fight doesn't seem like the greatest idea. If Peter Yan goes out there and he wins and he puts up 100 points, it's going to start to get real interesting if all three favorites win. And you might see the Millie Maker split 2,000 ways at that point. And if that's the case, you might even see like somebody scoring 90 points. Like if Usman scores 90 points and somehow not be in a winning lineup, right? Just because of the way that the salaries work out. If some of those other mid-round fights end with early knockouts, early finishes, and they're scoring like 70 or 80 points, they might just end up piling up enough points. So that's also another thing. Definitely don't want to be fading those fights, but you have to think about it of the putting the pieces of a puzzle together. You can't fit the three favorites into a fight, in my opinion, even if they all win, unless you want to split first place with a ton of people. And at that point, I'd rather just take the odds of something else happening. Any fights you're looking to stack? Volkanovski and Holloway seem popular. Yeah, that would be the one fight that I would want to stack on the top end, Holloway and Volkanovski. But the fact that they're both popular, I don't want to do it. Like you snack like. Yeah, I don't want to do it. I don't think a lot of people are going to stack both of them, but I don't really like to stack. Who's favored to win? So who's favored to win in the Henry fight? The favorite right now is the opposite side of Henry. It's not Henry, it's Ani. I have pretty much the same amount of both of them. All right, cool. So do you think the high-stakes tournaments will less people that you could go with Yan, Usman, and Volk? Do you think in high-stakes tournaments with less people that you can go with Yan, Usman, and Volk? Yeah, so you're trying to say like high stakes, if there's less overall people in the competition, should you go with the three favorites? I still think people are going to do that. Even if you're in a 1,000-person field, I think that there's probably going to be upwards of like 40, maybe like 40 people who pick those, but then obviously it depends on who your underdogs are. So I don't think I want the three favorites in my lineups in the championship fights just because of what it leaves over. You have to hope that like Vanessa Mello pulls off a victory, right? And I don't want to be doing that. And then there's like these guys at the 7,500 and below. I don't even like them. Like I don't like Double Z. Don't like them. And I'm saying that because I want to cop out from saying the actual name. All right, how long have I been live? Been live for 25 minutes, 80 people in here. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I think I'm about to bounce. I'm going to go find me custom-made pizza. And I got to run 9 miles in the morning. Getting up around 4 a.m., make a little NFL video. Scheduled out for July 31st. And then run 9 miles. Are you using a 2-4 or 3-3 split for most of your lineups? A 2-4 or 3-3 split, are you talking about for main event cards? Like main event versus... So are you saying prelims versus televised, or I assume you're saying like main event versus 3-round fights? A lot of my lineups are going to feature... majority of my lineups, it depends on which stack I go with or which crunches I go with. If I play 100% Usman and Volkanovski, I'm going to have 58% of my lineups will feature the main event fights, all three lineups, all three fighters in there. I have a hard time seeing Max being finished in my head. He might get beat up, though, for 5. Yeah. Why are you running? Because I like to run. Training for a half marathon that obviously there'll never be half marathons this year, I don't think. But just doing it. I like schedules, so half marathon training about 6 weeks in. Favorite versus underdogs. Are you going to a 2-4 split or a 3-3? So in my Aldo lineups, it's hard to tell right now. I'm looking at it and it's looking like I'd probably have, I don't know. I really can't tell. Like I have 20% of Ribas in this, but I have 100% Volkanovski and Usman. So it's naturally starting out to be more 3-3. But the more that I go down, I have Melo, I have Jessica, I have Jose Aldo, I have Bogatov. They're like my next 4 owned. So I'm going to say more 3-3 just because I have 100% Usman and Volkanovski in this crunch. But even if I go with my other crunch I didn't put any locks in, right? I didn't lock it. I just said, let me use my projections and some of my changes in the tool and the optimizer and see what happens. In that one, I got 86% Usman. I only got 56 Volkanovski, but I got 42% Max Holloway. And I don't want that. I don't want the same amount of Max Holloway as the field has as an underdog, right? So when I saw that, I made adjustments, and then I also crunched one that just said, just give me no Max Holloway. Because having the same amount as the field as an underdog that's highly owned is pointless, in my opinion. You either go lower on them or you get a lot of them and hope that they win. Because if they win and you have the same amount of the field, it did absolutely nothing for you. Literally nothing for you at that point. I might run 2 laps tomorrow. Yeah, man. Just get some cardio in. Honestly, I run a ton, and I don't think running is good for you. Like, it's good for you if you want to. I guess it's an involved statement. It's good for you if you want to lose weight, get your cardiovascular system in shape, right? All that stuff. But if you're talking about like long-term health for your knees, and also what they call like your gut health, it's actually not good for you. So I just want to run this half marathon whenever they start opening back up. I just want to run a marathon, get those checked off the bucket list because I've been trying for 3 years and I always get injured, concussion, back twice throughout my back. So hopefully this time I don't get injured. I run a half marathon every year besides this year. Stair steppers are good for you. Yeah, stair steppers are better for you, and they make you sweat like nothing else. Obviously, swimming is fantastic for you, no impact. But yeah, I've been trying to run a half marathon for 3 years. 2 weeks before the half marathon, I was on pace for a 7-minute mile in the half marathon, actually like a 6:50-minute mile. And I had 2 weeks until it. I was just training with a friend of mine, and I got a concussion that knocked me out for a year. And then I was training again for it, and I threw out my back like 2 months in. It's like a 3.5-month training, the training cycle that I do. And then last year I was doing it, and then I moved and then threw out my back again. And I say threw it out. I don't know. I just injured it. What's up, Sal? Are you going to do any 3-round content for the Workday Charity Open? No, I'm not going to because of the delays. I was planning on doing showdown content for it, but there's just no way that I can. The tournament is going to get cut short once it gets dark out, but it's going to go until like 8 o'clock tonight. And then I just can't do anything for it. Like right now there's still guys that are on hole 8, right? So like I just can't make content for tomorrow when a quarter of the field is only halfway done with their round, right? It's so hard to make content for that. At least anything that's stable. Like once this round is over, the strokes gain data is going to be pretty significantly different, and all the information that I just gave out, some of it might stand, but a lot of it's going to be fluky. So there's like logistically I can't. Since the delays came in and took off like an hour and a half. Yesterday I was able to put the video up at like 5:30. Today, by the time these rounds end, it's looking like they're going to be called short. Like they might end at like 8:30. So I just won't be able to. Lowest owned projection above $8,000. Lowest owned fighter above $8,000. Probably Maxim, I would think. Do not forget to hit the like for Sal. He does a hell of a job. Thanks, Samuel. I appreciate that. Yeah, hit the like and subscribe button. If you're just an MMA junkie, I would probably recommend you to the Pat Mayo Show, what they do every single Friday. I don't cover MMA every single week, just really these milli makers that are popping up because I actually play them on DFS, so I might as well give my opinions on the strategy side of it. Would also recommend the Awesome Show with Pete the Heat. if you want to watch every single week. But then I cover NFL, NBA, and golf. Golf, 4 or 5 videos a week. Tons of stuff on Patreon. Also for this event, there's stuff on Patreon if you want to check out projections, rankings, where I'm going with my lineups, those types of things. And then also every single day, the NBA, when that's back, we'll be covering it. Every single day, NFL content's dropping. Playing the weather didn't help me. That's fair. Yeah, I think Jessica's a pretty good underdog option. Like my 4th highest owned player, 5th highest owned fighter right now. Great videos, man. Appreciate all the hard work. Been watching a lot of your golf and fantasy football videos. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think a lot more people are going to start to discover the fantasy football stuff because the month of August is a big fantasy football month, of course, when September, 2nd week of September, the season starts. Everybody's drafting usually in August. So I think right now, in like 30 days, there might be a chance that the channel, I say pop off, but like a couple of those videos can hit maybe like the 20 to 50,000 view range, and that would be really awesome because putting in 5 hours a day just for one NFL video per day that's getting like right now only 1,500 to 2,500 views is tough. But the goal is that a couple of them pop off when a bunch of the search volume increases in August and September, and then people go back and watch all the other ones, and then those start to get a little bit more traction. People buy my draft guide, and then it's worth it. So it's not much of a risk. The draft guide on the website is already paid for itself based on just a couple of weeks of being up. It's just more of a time risk. Like, where could I have spent that time better? But I have confidence that come August, some things might start to pop off a little bit. Thanks, bro. Smash the like button. Appreciate it. Okay, if you have any final questions, I'm about to go. We've been live for 30 minutes. If you're watching the replay and you're still watching at this point, check out Patreon. Hit the like and subscribe button. Also, check out Superdraft. Their contests are never just going to fill. They just don't. So you can check out Superdraft. Right now, let me check their contests. I know that they had like a 4K contest for the MMA stuff, and let's see if it's still up there because they're just always having so much overlay. So yeah, right now the Super Draft contest. Obviously, we have a lot of time until this slate locks tomorrow. It's less than a day now though. Their contest is only 20% filled, and that's not a knock against Super Draft. I like them a lot. They're giving you better opportunities here. So I'll put the Super Draft link in here because I think it's actually very advantageous for you to take advantage of this. Let me grab it. Let me find the MMA one. We can just go. I'll just put this golf one in there. It takes you to the same exact place, I think. But you can go there. You can check that out. If you want to use the promo code SAL, you'll get like an extra $10, I think. But either way, I would check it out because there's 4K to first, and right now it's only 20% filled. It might not get more than like 65% filled tomorrow. And if that's the case, you're like you'd have to play really poorly not to have a chance to cash or place pretty highly. Alrighty, everybody. Appreciate it. Peace out, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. I'm going to go make a customized pizza. Peace.